Hello guys, welcome back to the new video of the fibroid. And fibroid is an important topic in the gyno-ops. And basically the fibroid, when we were in basic science, the fibroid were known as leiomyoma. But when we are in the clinical practice, we will call the fibroid as a we will call leiomyoma as a fibroid. So fibroid is basically the benign tumor of the smooth muscle of the uterus. So in uterus, the most common tumor that we encounter in the OPD practice is basically fibroid. And you should know it is not a malignant, it is a benign tumor. So first thing, it is a benign tumor, and second thing, it is the tumor of the smooth muscle cell. So smooth muscle cell tumor is fibroid, and basically the smooth muscle cell in the fibroid are arranged in the form of holes, that is in the circular fashion. You can see in this picture, this is the uterus, this is a fallopian tube. We are showing you the fallopian tube, and you can see easily the holes of the fibroid, and the smooth muscle cells are arranged in the form of circular arrangement, like a flower, like a circular flower. This is hole, and basically the outside of the has one capsule. Outside of the fibroid has a capsule. This capsule is not a true capsule, so it is basically pseudo capsule. So we will call it as a pseudo capsule. It is a pseudo capsule, and it can be differentiated from the other muscles of the uterus. So let's talk about the incidence. In almost all women, 30% of women have basically the fibroid. So 30% of women is having fibroid. And another thing, that in greater than 50 years, almost 80% of the women will have fibroid. So it is the ratio that in overall condition, in the young, I think in the young females, that is less than in 50 years, almost 30% of women is having fibroid. But after the 50 years, almost 80% of women is having fibroid. Now let's talk about etiology. So main thing, that is the main thing of the etiology is basically the two hormones. They are estrogen and progesterone. So in previous days, what they were saying, what the gynecologists were saying, that the main etiological factors of the fibroid is basically estrogen. But nowadays the concept has a little bit improved, and they get us to know that not only estrogen, the progesterone has also role in fibroid. That's why nowadays we will say that there are the two hormones that are basically related to the origination of fibroid, that are the estrogen and the progesterone. Basically these two hormones acts as basically the growth factor, and excess of the estrogen and progesterone will lead to the fibroid. So there are some conditions which will actually increase the level of estrogen and progesterone. Basically the estrogen, but yes, somehow progesterone also works for the origination of fibroid. So let's talk, there are some conditions which will lead to the increase of the estrogen and progesterone level. So the first condition I will talk you, that is a nulliparity. Nulliparity. So basically nulliparity means those females which have no any baby. So females with no baby. So such female who has no baby or who do not get pregnant, such female are called nulliparous female, or say simply they are called as nulliparity. So in nulliparity, basically what happens, ki there are estrogen exposure for a long time. As after the birth, the estrogen exposure is decreased due to the hormone prolactin. So we already know that after the birth, if someone give the birth, so after the birth there is a hormone called prolactin, and this prolactin causes the lactational amenorrhea. This prolactin causes lactation amenorrhea, and in that time the estrogen level is decreased. So whenever a female get pregnant, then due to the prolactin there is decreased level of estrogen and progesterone due to the hormone prolactin. But if she is not giving any birth, then prolactin will not get released in her life, and that's why the estrogen exposure will be relatively more than those females who give the birth. So this is the thing, that's why there is a more estrogen exposure in the nulliparous female, and there is a more chance that the female will have the fibroid in the future. There was a mythical statement which we will listen during our clinical days, that the mythical thing was that if you will not take the baby in the uterus, then God will put either something into your uterus like fibroid. They will put fibroid. So this is just a mythical thing, just I want to say. That's why I said. And now the second etiological factor is basically the obesity. So whenever there is any female who is obese, then we know that in obese female there is a high level of cholesterol in the body. And if there is a high level of cholesterol in the body, this high level of cholesterol will actually form the high levels of estrogen and progesterone. As we know that the estrogen and progesterone synthesis require the cholesterol, and if there is a obesity, there is a high cholesterol level, and high cholesterol means high estrogen and progesterone level, and that's why it leads to fibroid. Third thing is that if the female is red meat eater, so if you are red meat eater, then the red meat contain basically the high level of the fat also, and the red meat has a high calorific value, and due to which that may lead to the estrogen and progesterone level. Another thing is that another etiology, that is basically the growth factors. There are certain growth factors which will lead to the which will lead to formation of fibroid, like the growth factors are basically transformation growth factor, another is vascular endothelium growth factor, another is platelet derived growth factor. So there are simply some growth factors which will activate in different conditions, but I just put some names, that is a platelet derived growth factor, transformation growth factor, and vascular endothelium growth factors. So these are the growth factors which may lead to the fibroid by increasing which may lead to the fibroid, not by the estrogen and progesterone exposure. They will have their own effect, that they will promote the growth of the smooth muscle in the uterus. The fifth etiology is basically the oral contraceptive pills. So if the female is taking any kind of pills, oral contraceptive pills, and if it contain the high level of estrogen, then that oral contraceptive pills can cause the fibroid. Another thing is that if you are taking the hormone replacement therapy, so let's suppose if any female is menopausal, and after the menopause, due to some reasons, she took the hormone replacement therapy, and due to this hormone replacement therapy, due to the presence of estrogen in the HRT, the female will have the estrogen exposure, and then the female may have the fibroid. And there are some association which are related to fibroid, like that if the let's suppose if any female has any relative who has fibroid, then it might happen that the female may get the fibroid, more possibility of getting fibroid. This is 2.5 times the more chance of getting fibroid than the other females. So if the female mother has a fibroid in her days, or if the female grandmother has a fibroid, then it may rise the possibility to get fibroid. That is 2.5 times more chances of getting fibroid if she has a relative who has fibroid. Another thing in etiology is that it was seen that almost 40% of the cases of fibroid are associated with the chromosomal abnormality. So 40% of the cases are actually seen that related to the chromosomal abnormality. So the 40% of the cases are associated with the chromosomal abnormality. And what are the chromosomal abnormality? Let's see. So there are chromosomal 12 and 14 basically translocation. So there are some translocation which happen between the chromosome number 12 and chromosome number 14. Another type of anomaly or abnormality is basically the 12 chromosome trisomy. So trisomy 12 and another thing is that the deletion of the 7 number of chromosome. So deletion 7 deletion. So these are the some chromosomal abnormality that that are basically associated with the fibroid. Let's talk about the classification of fibroid. So basically there is a important classification, that is FIGO classification, and the FIGO classifies the fibroid based on the location. So based on the location, the fibroid are basically different types. Basically I think 8 types. So basically 8 types. So the 8 types are basically arranged in the form of 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on 8. In this picture, this is a picture of uterus, and you can see I have shown different type of like the balls, and these balls are basically the fibroid. So let's suppose there is a ball or there is a fibroid which is actually located inside the uterus. So that is located just inside the uterus. I mean totally inside the uterus. There is no any point touching the surface of the uterus. Such type of the fibroid is known as the intramural fibroid. Intramural fibroid. Mural means across the wall, and it is just inside the wall. No any surface touches the the surface of the fibroid touches the surface of the uterus. So this is totally intramural. So this is intramural. Another thing is it is a 3. So intramural, total intramural is categorized at number 4. Another we have the fibroid. Basically this fibroid, the one of the surface is touching the surface of the uterus, and basically not outside the uterus surface, it is touching the inside uterus surface, that is in the endometrium. So it is touching the surface, that is the endometrium, and this is also intramural, as the overall the fibroid is located inside the muscle of the uterus, but one surface is touching the surface of the uterus. So this is known as 3, and we will call this 3 as a 100%. It is also 100% intramural. So it is also called as intramural, but one surface touch the endometrial. So this surface, the inner surface, is called as endometrial surface. So one surface is touching the endometrial surface. Let's see number 2. So in number 2, the actually fibroid is coming outside. I mean the fibroid is going inside the uterine cavity. So this is the uterine cavity, and the fibroid is trying to get inside the uterine cavity, but it is just only trying, and in try almost more than 50% is still in the uterine cavity, I mean uterus muscle, and less than 50% is in the uterine cavity. So this is the number 2, and we will say that it is a greater than or 50%, it is intramural. It is intramural. Yani ki 50% of the fibroid is basically more than 50% is fibroid is still in the uterus, and only less than 50% is in the uterine cavity. Now see the one number, more than, now it is just opposite. More than 50% is in the uterine cavity and less than 50% is in the uterus. So this is basically less than 50% intramural. It is more than 50% intramural, and one number is less than 50% intramural. Now we have the number 0, and we can see a peduncle like a structure. So it is a stalk or peduncle, and we have the fibroid totally inside the uterine cavity. So this fibroid is known as pedunculated fibroid. So 0 number fibroid is known as pedunculated. Pedunculated means the fibroid is having a stalk, and the fibroid is not touching the basically the wall of the uterus. It is totally located inside the uterine cavity. So this is the 0 type. So these are the 5 types. First of all, we talked this the 5 types of the FIGO classification based on the location. It was intramural, so it is 100%. 4 number is totally intramural. The 3 number is intramural, but one surface is touching the uterine cavity. Another is 2 number, the less than 50, greater than 50% is still in the myometrium, and less than 50% is touching coming outside the uterine cavity. And in 1 number, less than 50% is intramural, यानी कि inside the uterine wall, and 0 number is totally outside the uterine wall. Now we will see the 5, 6, 7 and 8. So the 5 is basically the fibroid is not the side of the uterine cavity. So this is basically the uterine cavity. We have already seen that the 0 to 4, 0, 1 to 3, 4 were basically coming inside the uterine cavity, but this 5, 6, 7, 8 is coming out and they are away from the uterine cavity. So they are basically touching the serosal area. So this outside of the uterus is basically known as serosa. So this is known as serosa, and basically the tumor are almost all the tumors are touching the serosa. So we will name them as a serosal tumor. So see the 5 number, greater than 50% is in the uterine wall. So greater than 50% the uterine wall, greater than 50% is in the uterine, means greater than 50% is intramural. Now see the and this type of tumor are known as subserosal. So it is subserosal, that is some part is still located inside the serosa, but that's why it is known as subserosal. But still 50% of the 50% of the more 50% or more than 50% of the fibroid is inside the uterine wall. Now see the 6 number, less than 50% is inside the uterine wall, more than 50% is outside the uterine wall. So this is also subserosal, but it is a less than 50% intramural, and it is also subserosal. Another we will see the 7 number. The 7 number is basically subserosal, but it is somehow the outside the, so it is also subserosal, and it is actually pedunculated. So subserosal but pedunculated, that is 7 number. And the 8 number is totally outside the it has come or detached from the uterine cavity, and we will call it 8, and it is known as cervical parasite. It is known as cervical parasite. So this 8 number fibroid has no connection to the uterus. It has come out from the uterus and it acts as a parasite. It goes to the cervix and it is known as cervical parasite. Now let's talk about the presenting complaint or the symptom of the fibroid. So basically the presenting complaint are pain, bleeding. So the two main complaints that the female will tell, that is a pain, and the pain will be basically the lower abdominal pain, and there is a bleeding from the vagina. So bleeding per vaginum, these two are the basically complaint of the female having the fibroid. So now let's talk about the pain first. So why there is a pain? Simply you should know that, let's suppose this is a uterus and let's suppose this is a fibroid, then one thing we should consider that the fibroid is actually like the antigen, and the whole uterus acts as an antibody. So the uterus, other uterine wall tries to actually remove this antigen or remove this fibroid as soon as possible. That's why they will cause the more contraction, any contraction frequency increases. So that's why due to the intense contraction or increased contraction frequency, the pain aggravates. So that's why there is a pain due to, first of all, contraction of the uterine wall, and why there is a contraction of the uterine wall more, it is due to the antigenic fibroid. So this fibroid, to remove the fibroid, the uterus wants to anyhow contract and get it off. So that's why there is a contraction of uterine wall, and due to that contraction the female is having the pain. And the thing, the pain may be also due to the degeneration. So this fibroid, and the fibroid, sometimes the fibroid have certain degenerations. Sometimes the degenerations are the hyaline degeneration, that is a pinkish mass deposition in the fibroid. Sometimes the degeneration is the calcific degeneration, and calcific degeneration means the calcium salts are basically deposited in the fibroid, and in such condition the fibroid become the stone like structure, and we will call this condition as the stone in the womb. So we will call it a stone in womb. So such type of thing is also can happen. The fibroid has totally become like a stone, hard, and we will call it in womb there is a stone. So the degeneration can be hyaline, can be calcific. There is some more degeneration that the having the fibroid may have the lipid-like structures, so known as the lipoid degeneration. Lipoid degeneration. The fibroid may have the cyst in them, so known as cystic degeneration. And the fibroid may have the bleeding inside them, known as the hemorrhagic degeneration. So there are different things, different type of degeneration can occur in the fibroid, and those degeneration also may lead to the pain. So a different type of degeneration like the hyaline degeneration, calcific degeneration, hemorrhagic degeneration, cystic degeneration, lipoid degeneration. So this degeneration also may lead to the pain. So one of the cause of the pain is the contraction of uterine wall, and another is the degeneration. There are some more causes of the pain. Two cause already we have talked. The third cause is that this fibroid, here is a fibroid, then it may compress the uterine other structures or uterine surrounding structures, or it may compress the fallopian tube. So in such case, due to the compression, it may lead to the pain. Another thing that due to the compaction, as the fibroid leads to the compactness in the areas of the uterus. So this due to this compaction, due to the congestion of the area in the pelvis, the pain can occur. So these are the four reasons: compaction, compression, compaction, contraction, and degeneration. So these are the four generations, 3C and 1D. So these are the four things that will cause the basically pain in the female. So these are the two actually figure. One of the figure is of normal uterus. So it is basically the normal uterus, and this uterus is having the fibroid. So here is a fibroid. What is the important thing that you can point out, that the total surface area of the so this is basically, this red color is the endometrial surface, and basically in every menstrual cycle this is the endometrial surface which actually gets slug out, and that slug out and lead to the menstrual cycle, that is menstrual bleeding. If there is a female having fibroid, the endometrial surface will be increased. So you can see the endometrial surface in this and endometrial surface in this. There is a more endometrial surface, extra endometrial surface in case of the fibroid patient. So due to which, as the more endometrial surface, that's why there is a more bleeding. So one of the cause of the more bleeding is more endometrial surface. So endometrial surface is actually more in the female of the fibroid, and that's why during the menstrual cycle there will be the excessive bleeding in the patients of fibroid. So, and that may bleed in the other days also. So one thing of the bleeding, one of the cause of the bleeding is more endometrial surface, and the cause is poor effective contractility. So many of students get now confused that I have talked in previous section of the pain, there is a more contraction. Now I am saying there is a poor effective contractility. Simply you should consider that let's suppose this is a uterus, and let's suppose here I have the fibroid. And now see, let's suppose my hand is a uterus, and now it is contracting, And let's suppose ki in this condition I have no any kind of the fibroid in my uterus, that's why it is contracting in a good way. But let's suppose this is now this blue color in my hand is showing you the fibroid, and due to the presence of fibroid the contraction cannot be so effective, and we know that the contraction is a main thing that will decrease the blood, ongoing blood. As we know, due to the uterine contraction the vessels of the uterus get constricted and the bleeding decreases. But due to the presence of the extra thing inside the uterus, the uterine contraction will increase, but there will be less effective uterine contraction due to the presence of the fibroid. So this presence of this fibroid lead to the ineffective type of contraction. The contraction frequency may get increased, but the contraction efficiency is decreased, and that's why there is a more bleeding. So the two causes were more endometrial surface, poor effective contractility, and the third cause is basically the local prostaglandin. So local prostaglandin basically releases and they will cause the uterine contraction, and that may lead to the again bleeding. So these are the three causes. We talked that these three causes will lead to the bleeding. That is the poor effective contractility, more endometrial surface, and local prostaglandin release. So let's see some more features of the presenting complaint. That one of two features we have already discussed in the presenting complaint, that the female will come with the complaint of the pain and the bleeding. She may tell you the complaint of the increased urgency and frequency of urination. So she may complain you that she is having more urgency and frequency of the urination, or she may tell you she is having the increased bowel frequency, that she is having the more defecation nowadays. So the two main complaints, that increased urination and increased frequency of the defecation, that is the bowel frequency. The reason behind it, that let's suppose this is a sagittal section, and you can see this is a uterus, this is urinary bladder, and this is the bowel. So this is the rectum, and this is the, let's suppose this is the anus, and you can see this is a vaginal orifice, this is the urethra, and this is a urinary bladder. Let's suppose the fibroid is present in the anterior wall. This is a uterus, then it is the anterior wall, and it is a posterior wall. So let's suppose the fibroid is present in the anterior wall. So this fibroid may irritate the urinary bladder, and this, due to the irritation of the urinary bladder, anterior fibroid, it causes the increased urgency or increased frequency of the urination. So this is a cause that the anterior fibroid may irritate the urinary bladder and lead to the increased urgency and frequency of urination. Similarly, the posterior type of the posterior wall is, if the posterior wall of the uterus is having the fibroid, that may irritate the bowel, and that may lead to the increased bowel frequency. So the two type of fibroid based on the location may irritate the different structures and may lead to the respective symptoms. And let's suppose if the fibroid is present in the posterior wall, but the lower region, that is near to the cervix, then that will actually increase in such a fashion that will compress the urethral neck. So this is a neck of the urinary bladder, and that may here is actually sacrum. So basically, whenever the fibroid actually grows in the lowermost part of the rectum, in the posterior side, that will actually compress the neck of the urinary bladder and may lead to urinary retention. So the urinary retention is basically due to the posterior wall fibroid. It is not due to the anterior wall fibroid. Many of the students get confused that the urinary retention is basically due to the anterior wall fibroid, but no, it will also cause the urinary retention, but it will cause in late. So the anterior wall, lowermost anterior wall fibroid, it will cause the urinary retention, but in lately. Before that, if there is a posterior wall fibroid that may compress the urinary bladder neck, and that may lead to urinary retention. So urinary retention, but it is somehow the rare complaint, urinary retention. The most common complaints are pain, bleeding, increased bowel frequency, increased bowel increased urination. So these are the main complaints. So anterior wall fibroid cause the increased frequency of urination, posterior wall fibroid cause increased frequency of the defecation, and the lower posterior wall fibroid may cause the urinary retention. So these are the three symptoms of the patient of having of fibroid. Now the next diagnosis and management we will talk in the next video. Thank you, and if you like, then like, comment and share, and please subscribe my channel. Thank you.